Name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight individuals who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly, and BK Bob Knakal, you are definitely one of those persons.
I was very lucky. I grew up in a very small town, Maywood, New Jersey. I played high school basketball, high school baseball. I was very athletic. I love playing sports. I think the competitive spirit was a good thing, so I wanted to do the same thing in the real estate market. When I was first going to college, I wanted to be a Wall Street guy and got the job in real estate between freshman and sophomore year, and that really piqued my interest in real estate. October of '88, we had saved up about 400 grand, and we felt that was enough to start the business, and left in November of '88 to start Massey Knakal. I don't remember being nervous about starting it. I think, we were very young. I was 26, Paul was 28. We just thought we could take over the world. The world is changing rapidly, probably more rapidly than ever before. Always in business, you want to stick to your core principles. You want to constantly adapt to a changing environment. And my embracing AI is just adapting to a changing environment. One of the regrets I have is that early on in my career, I didn't ask a lot of experienced people for advice. Paul and I made hundreds, if not thousands, of mistakes because we did everything by trial and error. I think we could have avoided, and having a coach there to guide you, particularly when you're going through rough times, is really helpful. I advise people get a coach, and then when you know the right things to do, you have to use that discipline to keep doing them over and over again. Love what you do, work hard at it, and there's really no limit to what you can achieve in the business world.
Bob, how are you doing today?
Great, Ron. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. Name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight individuals who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly, and BK Bob Knakal, you are definitely one of those persons. All right.
Well, thanks, Ron. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Now, your time and what you've done in the industry, very few people can say that they've shaped New York. And you're talking about one of the biggest, if not the biggest, construction slash sales of buildings market. And for you to have the pedigree that you went to Wharton, working at Coldwell Bank, then moving on, you started working at JLL, start working at Cushman, then you started your own firm, and then going back again and starting your own firm. There's a lot of things I want to discover with BK. Everyone knows BK, but I want to go back to young BK.
Okay.
Right? What was BK like in, let's say, middle school? What was your passion? Were you a sports guy, book guy? What was your
Yeah, I
thing?
was always a sports guy.
Okay.
I was very lucky. I grew up in a very small town in northern New Jersey, Maywood, New Jersey. Had a great group of 7 friends. We all went to kindergarten together. I'm still friends with those guys today. But we were always doing some kind of sports after school. We were either playing basketball or football or baseball or street hockey. We didn't play ice hockey back in those days. We played street hockey, but we were always doing something. And it was after school. We did one of those sports until 6 o'clock when the fire department blew the fire whistle, and that was a signal for all the kids to go home and eat. And that was my life growing up. I played high school basketball, high school baseball. In college, I played baseball all 4 years at Penn, and always was very athletic. I love playing sports.
So I love that you said play street hockey because I grew up in Jamaica, so we didn't have hockey, but I played street soccer, and it's usually until sundown and parents screaming that everyone needs to get back inside the house. But those are the times you meet some of your best friends, man. It's being out on the street, running around, kicking the ball around. For you, it'd be the hockey puck. And what is it about baseball that you liked? Because you said a lot of sports, so it
Yeah,
seems like
no, I
baseball
like
was the thing.
team sports, and I think team sports is a great training ground for real estate because real estate is extraordinarily competitive, as sports is, and then team sports particularly you have to work well with others, and real estate is kind of a team sport too. You need to work well with others, so I think it's very good training from a number of perspectives.
I like that you said that because one of the action points of the podcast is doing things from an athletic mindset. And so for me personally, I grew up as a short, stocky kid, and my mom put me into tennis. I had no business playing tennis, right? But eventually I started running down the balls, getting good at hitting the balls back, became captain, then became national champion. And in that process of developing myself through sports, everything else I've used to translate elsewhere. And I can feel that energy when you speak about sports, that it kind of found its way into everything else you did in your life through,
Mhm.
especially the competitive nature of business sales or building sales, especially in New York. So is that something that you found a translation for yourself when you started doing business?
Yeah, I mean, I think the competitive spirit was a good thing. I also was one of the kids who always went all in on everything I did. So I wanted to do the same thing in the real estate market, and always have meticulously tracked the market from a statistical perspective, and that's always been good because I've always been wanting to describe the market with statistics rather than adjectives, and that's something I'm kind of known for now. But it's all about. I always say we're not in the real estate business; we're in the information and relationship business,
Hmm.
and you have to have good information if you want to set yourself apart from everyone else.
The greats always do it like that. If you look at Mike Tyson, if you looked at any other sports individual, they find themselves. That's what reading the tape is. That's what watching tape is. It's stats. It's downloading patterns, seeing what the person does or doesn't do well, capitalizing on it. So definitely see the parallel there. But I wanted to dive into, like, all right, so you're good at sports, but why economics at Wharton? Like, why not accounting? Why not art? Like, why did you choose to go down the business side of the deal?
Yeah, well, I went to Penn to play baseball. My
Right.
my college baseball coach at Penn was the brother of my high school baseball coach.
Yeah.
So that helped me get in. And, Wharton having the great reputation it does. And I wanted to get into business. I thought when I was first going to college, I wanted to be a Wall Street guy,
Okay.
like a lot of other kids who went to Wharton did. And I got the job in real estate between freshman and sophomore year, and that really piqued my interest in real estate, and was a deciding factor in why I decided to get into the business.
So let's talk about that. So I think it accidental. Did you always know it was real estate? Because you're getting a degree from Wharton, you could go anywhere. Why real estate?
No, well, I was looking for a job that would look good on my resume,
Hmm.
um, between freshman and sophomore year. So spring break freshman year, put together a resume, drove around Bergen County, New Jersey, dropping it off at every commercial bank and investment bank I saw. I came out of a Payne Weber office in Hackensack, and across the hall I saw a big sign that said Coldwell Banker. I thought the place was a bank. So I went in, dropped my resume off. They called me later that day, went on the interview. They were the only ones hiring college kids for the summer, took the job, and I absolutely loved it. It was great. A lot of, great vibe in the office, a lot of energy, a lot of activity. People seemed very happy. They were making a lot of money. They worked really hard. And I really loved that environment. And I kind of said, well, hey, maybe real estate's something I want to do. And then my sophomore year, first semester, I had an entrepreneurial management class, and we had a guest speaker come in, and he said, hey, look, you guys, I was sitting right where you are 20 years ago. And I wanted to be an investment banker. You probably all want to be an investment banker because you think you're going to make a lot of money doing that. Don't take a job because you think you're going to make a lot of money doing it.
Mm,
Pick a job that you love. I sell dog food for a living, and I'm the happiest guy I know. And he
mm,
said, I want to go to Wall Street, but I stumbled into pet supply and pet products. And he says, I'm so happy doing it. And I do really well in my business, but I only do well in it because I love it so much. I'm able to work hard enough to succeed. And if you succeed and get to the top of anything in business, you're going to do very well financially. So, do something you love, and then you'll be able to put in enough time to get to the top of it.
No, that's a key gem right there. I found out later in my life this concept called ikigai. And so what ikigai is, it's a Japanese philosophy for life purpose, right? And it's four intersecting circles. And one is what you're good at, what you love doing, what people will pay you for, and what the world needs. And at the intersection of that is your ikigai, right? And so the part of your ikigai is you need to enjoy doing it. If you're good at it, the world needs it and you get paid for it. It's a profession. It's not quite your ikigai. And so him saying that portion to you about you need to love it because you know it's going to suck regardless of how much you love it, right? There are
Hmm.
going to be those meticulous dead days where you don't even feel like you want to do the thing anymore, but that drive inside you, that competitive nature or that thrill to want to win at what you're doing is what's going to push you past those moments. So no, that's gem right there, and I love that you said that. But one of the questions now is, so you started at Coldwell, and then at some point you were like, you know what? I think I want to go off on my own. I want to do my own thing. So what was that process like? Were you sitting at Coldwell? Were you home? What was that process for you when you got to?
Yeah, well, my partner Paul Massey and I
Yeah,
had been partners at CB together, which started my second day on the job. We
right,
basically looked at each other, and a lot of the other people had a lot more experience than we did, and we just said, hey, let's work together, split everything 50-50, see how it goes. And that was the start of a 30-year partnership.
right.
4 years at Coldwell Banker, and then 26 years at Massey Knakal. And, about we started our business in November of 1988. 2 years earlier, we wanted to start the business. And we went down to Chemical Bank at the time, which is no longer around, but went to Chemical Bank and said, hey, we need a $500,000 loan. Where do we sign? And our banker kind of laughed at us and said, hey, guys, that's not the way it works. You got to go start the business, come back with a 3-year track record, and maybe we'll think about giving you a revolving credit line.
Mm,
But we were very dejected, went back to the office. And, every morning, Paul and I had breakfast together, but we would look at our deals and make a schedule of everything when they were going to close. We put money aside from each of the deals that we closed so that we'd raise the money to start. And by October of 88, we had saved up about 400 grand. And we felt that was enough to start the business and left in November of 88 to start Massey Knakal. And so it was, I don't remember being nervous about starting it. I think, we were very young. I was 26, Paul
okay.
was 28, and we just thought we could take over the world. And we had vaulting ambition. And, it was a very, very exciting time.
Yeah, I can only imagine. 26, you weren't any kids or any wife at the time. It was just
Uh,
yourself. Oh, so he was just young, strong, full of vinegar and purpose. Love it. Love it. So when you made that initial jump, right? Yeah, all the bubbles, all the festivity kind of wears off now, right? You've actually done the dreaming part. No, it's the planning and the execution. I find in that dream plan execute mantra that I speak, the execution is the hardest part. That's what the dream and the plan helps you with. So no, day to day execution of building this company. What was that process like?
Yeah, well,
What did
Ramon,
you
we had a very, very narrow value proposition
Mm,
at CB, and we continued to keep that same value proposition, and that was we only sell buildings, we only represent sellers, we only work on exclusive listings, and we only sell buildings in New York. And that is the same value proposition I have today. It hasn't changed at all. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I closed my deal 2,351.
yeah.
And in 2,349 of them, I exclusively represented the seller. The
Got
first deal Paul and I ever closed, we did a buyer rep deal, and we realized that it was complete luck that we closed that deal, and we didn't want to have a career that relied on luck. So we swore we would never do that again. And over the years, we did one other deal where the chairman of a big insurance company came to us and said, "Hey guys, I'll pay whatever I have to pay to buy property in this particular area. So just get something for me. And, we ended up, that was kind of a fluky deal, but we did as a favor to a friend. But every other time I've exclusively represented the seller. And that's been um, something that's non-negotiable for me.
No, that's good. It's your investment strategy. You have a strategy and it works and you keep doubling down on it and it makes sense for you and your team. So yeah, that makes sense. So now at some point, 26 years later, you decided to sell the business and move on. Once you did that, you moved on to working at, what was it, Cushman and Wakefield?
Yeah, well, we sold the business to Cushman Wakefield.
Okay.
We had a lot of things at Massey Knakal to be proud of. We started the business with just Paul, myself, and an assistant,
Right.
and grew it to 250 people in 4 offices in New York. The CoStar Group started tracking the market in 2001. And from 2001 to 2014, when we sold the business, the number 2 company in New York had sold about 1,300 buildings. And we were just a local shop dealing in one market. We were competing against regional, national, and
Right.
global firms. And while the number 2 company sold 1,300 buildings over that period of time, we sold over 4,000. So we lapped the field by more than 3x. And that was something that I was very proud of. We ended up selling the business to Cushman Wakefield in 2014 for $100 million. That I'm very proud of that. But the thing I'm most proud of is that we ran Massey Knakal with a servant leadership management style,
Mm.
encouraging our people to do better than their best, building their self-esteem, making them believe in themselves, training them very, very intensely. And so today, the thing that I'm most proud of about the Massey Knakal years is that today in the New York City investment sales arena, there are 32 companies or divisions of companies that are owned by or run by people who learn the business at Massey Knakal. And that's the legacy I'm most proud of by far.
Yeah, that's a legacy, and that I think it comes back to your sports background. That instead of it just you coached people, that's what you did, right? Like like I always there's a difference between parenting and coaching. Like a coach could say something to you, and you do it, and you don't feel hurt about doing it. And some ways, sometimes a parent says something to you, and you just don't want to move along with it. And there's something about the process of coaching someone like you're looking out for their best interest, which parents are doing the same thing too. You're setting a goal, you're letting the person understand the bigger vision. I'm pushing you because I want you to be great at this sport. I feel like being from baseball, being from an athletic background, you saw the need to coach people, and good coaches make great players become good coaches, and it's like a repetitive cycle. They're going to pass on their coaching that they learned from you to other persons. So yeah, that's a big, big, big gem to have under your hat. And so at that point, at Cushman, uh, what was it like transitioning from Cushman to the next business venture? At that point, you ended up at JLL, and then eventually we talk about BKREA.
Yeah, I mean the Cushman Wakefield years started out very easy.
Mm-hmm.
We remained in our old Massey Knakal space, and one of the managers from C&W would come over once a month and say hello and check things out. But we basically were doing the same exact thing we had been doing previously. We just had a different business card.
Okay.
And then they hired an investment sales team that was a breach of our agreement. I don't blame them for that because I would have done the same thing if I was running the company at the time. But that was a breach of our contract, so we shortened our contracts with Cushman from 5 years to 3.5 years. Paul left the firm early to run for mayor of New York, and I knew I was going to leave, and was interviewing with a bunch of people, and ended up going over to JLL. And the same kind of thing happened. I was at JLL. The first year was great. and then JLL bought HFF. That deal happened on the proviso that the HFF
Right.
team would run everything, and that was a further breach. That was another breach of my contract, but wasn't a breach of the contracts for the folks that I went over there with. When I left Cushman to go to JLL, I brought 53 people with me, all of whom had been working um, at Massey Knakal, and I would have been able to leave, but they wouldn't have been able to leave, so I stuck around, which probably was a mistake. But I stuck around, and then eventually got fired in February of 24, and then started BKREA in the beginning of April of 24. So um, it's been about 15 months, and I'm having so much fun again. I love being an entrepreneur, and I have a bunch of very hardworking younger folks who are learning the business, and we're back to having fun again.
It's funny. I've listened to this podcast. You'd love it. It's named Founders. So you get a chance. It's all the big founders of companies, right? From
Hmm.
Boeing to Amazon. And one of the episodes was just talking about Bloomberg. And Bloomberg, when he started Bloomberg, he's like that. Those are the most exciting times for him, like starting the business, getting into the weeds, and then he's like, it becomes this corporate machine, and he's like, I understand I can't just get up and just gunsling it anymore because there's like people and their lives tied to my gunslinging ways. It's like no, there's a process, there's a this, there's that, and he's like, man, I miss the opportunity to just start over again from scratch, small office, and just build it again. You get that opportunity, and he's still in his conversation in that whole podcast yearned for those moments when it was the smaller company. So now you have the opportunity to have some fun again with BKREA. So you also have an AI a component to, which is very interesting because a lot of persons are adverse to new technology, especially if they've done things for I work in construction, and you know if something new comes along, it's like we've done it this way all the time. Why are we going to even consider this? The process works. Don't change the process. Why do you feel that you need to enable some sort of AI component to a new company?
Yeah, well, Ramon, the world is changing. And the world is changing rapidly, probably more rapidly than ever before. And I think you have to, always in business, you want to stick to your core principles. You want to constantly adapt to a changing environment. And my embracing AI is just adapting to a changing environment. I mean, think about it. When I started in the business in 1984, I had no computer on my desk, no fax
Right,
machine, no cell phone. We carried rolls of quarters around to make calls from phone booths on the corner. And I mean, phone booths don't even exist anymore.
right.
And as much as the world has changed in the last 40 years, I think it's going to change even to a greater degree over the next five. AI is extraordinarily powerful. It's unveiling itself in all kinds of interesting and unique ways, and it's changing so rapidly. The great new thing that we're using and have been using for 2 months is being replaced by something bigger, faster, broader, more powerful, and the thing that's only 2 months old is a dinosaur already. So the rate of change is very, very rapid. And, I always say AI is not going to replace anybody, but somebody using AI will replace somebody that's not using AI.
Yeah, it's just a competitive edge. It's like if you don't, from a sports aspect, if you don't have that competitive edge and someone does, just over time, even if you don't see the difference between you and them in a year, give it 5 years, give it 10 years, and the difference, that 1% incremental efficiency that they have is just going to outpace you over the next 5 years. So now it's very good that, that's the approach that you guys are taking. I'm curious, now that with this AI, any curiosity in doing data center sales or anything like that? Are you staying focused on the true tenets of what you've worked on over the years?
I'm sorry, Ramon. Could you repeat that question,
Yeah,
please?
yeah, data center sales, like data center commercial, because there's a big component, not so much in New York, but outside of New York, a lot of traction in commercial real estate has changed because of COVID and how things have been moving around. How have you guys adapted to those changes? Is it, how you guys are working through that?
Yeah, well, we're not doing anything with data centers. Data centers, my understanding is the bigger the building, the better, and
Yeah,
the one story is much better than two or 10.
right.
So, I don't think data centers are really going to be big in New York City.
Hmm.
But in terms of adapting in a post COVID environment, clearly the whole work from home thing has impacted the office sector very significantly. The fact that people discovered that they hate commuting, was a big byproduct of what happened during the pandemic. I think in New York, we probably had return to work on a better scale than other major cities, but it's still causing an issue with our B and C class office buildings, and that's one sector that I don't think has found its bottom yet.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because now I think a lot of companies are going into a hybrid role, so it's not necessarily just work from home, but also not just working in the office. So yeah, I find that it's a big, no, a bigger push to have people back in the office, and that's helping the commercial space. But I wanted to talk to you now about just like things you've learned. You've done this industry for so many years, like core tenants. If you could go back to 26-year-old BK, what are like two or three tips you would have given him that you've learned now that you wish you knew then?
Yeah, well, one of the regrets I have is that early on in my career, I didn't ask a lot of experienced people
Hmm.
for advice, and consequently, Paul and I made hundreds, if not thousands, of mistakes because we did everything by trial and error. I think we could have avoided making a lot of those mistakes had we asked people who had been there and done that for advice. In later years, we formed an advisory board, some of the top people in our industry and other industries, to give us advice and guidance, and that was very, very helpful. But I think asking for advice and help is certainly one. Two, earlier on, I would have said, pick a level of or sector of the market that you could become a true expert in. I think in the real estate business, there's three traits I see in the very best people. One, they're an expert at something, and that something is small enough that you can understand every single thing about it, but big enough that you can make a great living doing it. Number two, they have tremendous passion for it. You have to love the business, and we always said to succeed in real estate, you only have to work half a day. It doesn't matter what 12 hours you work, but you got to work 12 hours a day. And it's hard to do that if you don't love it. Also, hard to make it through the tough times. No matter how good you are, you're going to have tough times because the market always has been, is, and always will be cyclical. So you need to love it so you make it through the tough times so you're around to take advantage of the good times that will inevitably return. And then, thirdly, you have to be able to use discipline well. We all have access to the same amount of discipline. We all choose to use it differently. And, there's a lot of things that we do, and any salesperson does, that are not very glamorous or exciting to do, but you have to do them over and over and over and over again. And it requires being able to use discipline well to keep doing them day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And, if you have those three traits, you're likely to be very, very successful. And that's expertise, passion, and being able to use discipline well. And I think had I known that earlier on, it may have changed some of the behaviors that I had.
Okay. And then what drove you to start the Bob Knakal show?
Well, just wanted to do a podcast. Really, the main impetus was, I knew Sam Zell, who was a a true titan of the real estate business.
Yeah.
Sam unfortunately passed away, and he hadn't done, to my knowledge, a podcast, and had so much great knowledge to share. So, I thought, hey, let's start a show and do a podcast, bring on some folks who are very active in the industry that don't do a lot of podcasts, so that they could share their story with other people. People could learn from them, and hopefully those lessons would enhance their career.
Yeah, I was listening to episode 5, one of my favorites. It's with Strip Mall guy,
Mm-hmm.
and that whole process of how he kind of stumbled into similar to real estate and how he fell in love with it. His process of doing his first development. I'm also in the process of working on starting my own, getting through development. But we're coming from different sides. I'm coming from the construction background. He's coming from more of the commercial sales background. One of the questions is I wanted to ask is like when you start your own thing, when you jump off the precipice, you start in your thing. What how did you go about if you did you have to raise capital or did you bootstrap? For the first part it sounded like you bootstrapped it, but did you end up going out and raising capital from
Yeah,
anyone?
no, we really never raised capital in the Massey Knakal days. We ran the business for a few years during the savings and loan crisis on credit cards. I ran my own life on credit cards for about 10 years, from 1988 to 1998. And this time around, no outside investors. The business is owned by my wife
Mhm.
and I. And my wife, Cynthia, is the comptroller of the business. So it's great to work together, but it's completely self funded.
Nice. And then at some point you sat down and you're like, let me write a book. Like let me kind of what was that process like? It takes a tremendous amount of focus to sit down
Yeah,
while having a busy life
a lot of
writing a
work,
book.
a lot of work. It took 2.5 years to write the book. I've been working with my broker coach, Rod Santamassimo, who is
Yeah.
one of my best friends now. But I've been working with him for since 2011. So I
Mm.
can't believe that time flies. But yeah, Rod and I said, hey, you know what? Let's write a book, and it really is it's using my career as a journey to take us through different market cycles and different experiences that you have along the way. But it really is almost like a textbook for brokers and investors. I tell a lot of lessons from each of the different segments of the timetable of my career that investors can learn from. Rod tells what brokers can learn from in the stories that we tell along the way, and those deal stories that we tell are very illustrative of what was happening in the broader market at the time. But we also telling the day to day stuff about what happened, how we grew, how we did things, why we did things, the things that went well, the things that didn't go so well. And so far the feedback that we've gotten has been extraordinarily positive, and I'm very grateful for that. The book is called Selling Buildings, and it so far it seems like it's resonating with people really well, and they feel like they're getting a lot out of it. So that makes me feel great.
Yeah, I picked up a copy. It hasn't come yet, and I'm from the construction side, so it may not necessarily hit a lot of the mechanics of selling a building. I may not follow along, but I'm sure it's gonna have a lot of servant leader mantras in there. How did you like stumble on like the servant leader mantra, and that's what you're going to focus as a
Yeah, well,
business?
we Paul and I both uh, read and read a lot of books, and we came upon Robert Greenleaf's servant leadership management style, which he developed in the 1970s. And if you think about it, it just makes so much sense. If you show the people that you want to invest in their training and make them as good as they could be, that tells them that you care about them. If you try to build up their self-esteem, it tells you that you care about them. If you give them feedback all the time, tells them that you care about them. And when someone knows that people are in their corner and care about them, and want to help them and want to help them achieve the best thing they possibly can achieve in their life, and you build up their confidence, people can achieve wonderful things. And I think it's one of the reasons why those 32 companies or divisions of companies are owned by or run by people that learn the business at our shop, is that I think we built them up to the point where they could let their natural talents and abilities take hold. And, I think that was a small ingredient in all of their success. But, it just, it made sense to us.
Yeah, I mean, it proof is in the pudding. It works. It certainly works. My final question to you would be for someone who's going through the rut, right? Like you started your business, you could be working for a next business, and you just feel like you're just making a misstep. It's just not, you're not getting on the timing of where you would like things. Things are falling apart. I'm sure you had those situations multiple times in your career. How did you get yourself out of that rut? That
Yeah,
like,
well, Ramon, what I would tell people today is I really believe very strongly in coaching.
hmm
Like I said, I've been coached since 2011. I think no matter how good you are, you can get better. And having a coach there to guide you, particularly when you're going through rough times, it's really, really helpful.
yeah,
So I advise people get a coach. I advise you to realize that number one, you have to know the right things to do. And then when you know the right things to do, you have to use that discipline to keep doing them over and over again. I use in the office, we always say with that, we all have to pound the rock.
mm,
And pounding the rock is the stonecutter's creed.
mm,
And the stonecutter's creed is, well, stonecutter comes into the shop in the morning and sits in front of a big piece of stone and takes his mallet out and bangs the rock and hits it 99 times and nothing has happened.
right,
And the 100th one, boom, the rock splits in half. And the person who doesn't know any better in the back of the room says, "Oh, well, that 100th one must have been different. It must have been a different mallet or a different angle, or he hit it harder." But the stonecutter knows that it was no different than any of the others. It just was that the 99 that came before it allowed that 100th to work. And in
hmm
the same way, provided you're doing the fundamentally correct things, you just have to keep doing them over and over and over again until they work. They will work if you're doing the right things. Get a coach, use discipline, have an area of expertise, be able to articulate your value proposition, love what you do, work hard at it, and there's really no limit to what you can achieve in the business world.
that's amazing. BK, thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. It was a pleasure hosting you. I love the work that you're doing in the industry. I follow you on LinkedIn. I learned from that last deal you mentioned about co-ops. I had, like, again, I'm from a different side of the business, right? So to hear what happens on that side of the business and how deals are structured and how things are moved, real exciting. Love that you spend the time reaching out and talking with persons half age or even younger who don't have the experience. Very active on LinkedIn. I tell everyone to follow you anytime I get a chance, but just give you a chance to like shout out where, if someone wants to connect with you, where are the best places to connect with
Yeah,
you?
sure. Well, I'm on all social media platforms. You can follow me on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. You can always email me directly at bk@bkrea.com, or feel free to call me. My cell number is 917-509-9501. So I look forward to hearing from you. And Ramon, thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Keep safe. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.